Well, I forgot to get a joke, but I'll tell the only one I know, and I've done it before, but it's the only one I can just give you, because I know some of you enjoy the joke things. We can have a little laugh. So, if you've heard it, it's nice to hear it again. Isn't it? This is about a young gentleman who had a wonderful heart and wanted to serve and wanted to do something that he felt was giving to people. And he went to a church that was a larger type denominational church and this man happened to be a gay man. And the church was not quite open enough to give him any large assignments to do outwardly, but he wanted to do something so bad, so they decided, let's let him every Sunday pick out at least 3 hymns for the congregation to sing. And so he was just thrilled about that, you know. So he gets up on Sunday and they say, do you have your 3 hymns? He says, yes, hymn, hymn, and hymn. Oh, that's the only one I know at the top of my head. Sorry.
I've never heard of that.
Bear with me this morning. I've wrestled to bring this and start this talk because it's a vast talk. It's a talk that really would take some time to do, so it may be a part of our new teaching when we come back in the school on Wednesdays. We'll see kind of how this goes. We've been mentioning for some time, at least I have been mentioning for the last 20 years, on this new idea of the multiverse, the multiverse. And you that read more modern books and read more modern blogs online will see that very seldom do you see the word universe as much as you're beginning to see the word multiverse. And this whole teaching comes under the last 100 years or so, or 150 years of quantum thinking, when we're changing our whole thinking about things and how we thought about them under an old paradigm called the Newtonian paradigm. And we're beginning to see things from a much deeper level. At one time we saw bodies as bodies, and then we realized bodies had 50 trillion cells, and then we found out that cells had atoms, and we thought we had arrived. Then we found that atoms had electrons, protons, and neutrons, and things got smaller and smaller and smaller until we've almost just run out of things. I want you to hear me. Things. And what we've run into is where things come from, where electrons come from, where atoms come from, where bodies come from. From everything that is matter comes from this tremendous field of consciousness or energy that we do our best to try to capture in the construct of God. Of God. And you know, nothing has been made clear about what God is as a construct. Most religions out there are going to see God differently than they're going to see other people who see God in a certain way. Because we just can't seem to find the absolute that is God. And I think we have to realize, because it is beyond our human comprehension, that we're dealing with something, as I tell you, that has no beginning and no end. Something that has no birth and no death. It is undefinable. It is non-local. But in its desire to have relationship with itself, it extended itself as a consciousness. A consciousness that lives and dwells within the depths of our souls, of our being. Call it the presence, call it the I am, call it God, call it whatever you choose to call it. It doesn't change what it is because we have different labels for it. It is that which it is. I like the presence that dwells deeply within ourselves. Through this multiverse idea came the teachings that I did both at Unity of Charlotte and also here at HeartLight, and that is the message of quantum jumping. How many here has attended one of those classes at one of those locations? That's quite a few of you who have learned that what they're finding out is that anything that ever was, is, or can be already exists in the vertical. And therefore, this has changed our whole thinking about linear perception. And we have done our best to try to tune ourselves to vertical presence. What this means, bottom line, is that anything that you think you lack, that you need, already is. There is no lack. Lack is a belief. It is the first time the mind of human beings divided itself by saying, I'm not you and you're not me. That was separation. If I'm not you and you're not me, then we are separate from each other. And once we believed that, an entire belief system was built upon that I'm not you and you're not me. Built upon the fact that I need to get health and wholeness, wellness, blessings, and prosperities. I don't have it. So workshops were built upon the idea still of lack, how you can get what you don't have. But the shift in the teaching now is, how do we find a matching frequency for already exists in divine mind? Are you with me? I always use the television analogy because it just fascinates me, all the stations that I have availability to on my television set. Hundreds. But I only watch one at a time, and the one that I watch is based upon 3 numbers or 3 frequencies. If I want to watch a certain frequency on 202 or 348, which is free speech TV, because I know those numbers, I can put them in and immediately that station manifests. But it wasn't that the station was not there. It was there as much as it ever was. It's just that I was not a frequency match to bring it into manifestation. And that's why there is so much today focused on vibration, on sound and frequency, and as well as color in this time that we are rebooting how we think, how we see, how we perceive. Now, it's very clear that before you get the new program, some call it the new normal, call it what you will, that there has to be the breakdown of the old way in which we manifest this. So the whole thing of the quantum was that at some frequency there is a you that is well, even though on this dimension we live every day, it may appear we lack that wholeness. We lack the healing. And what we try to do is we try to use the tool of prayer, intention, and other ways in which that we can bring what we think we lack in this dimension we live in every day and can bring it in. But actually, all we have to do is find a matching frequency for what it is we want to manifest that already exists. So just like there's multiverses. Now, if this thing we call God or Source is infinite, again meaning no beginning and no end, cannot be held in a label, a concept of the brain whatsoever. Now think about it. Then we have to prepare to lose the old programs of perception. At this point comes then the importance of the teachings such as the contribution of A Course in Miracles, which teaches us that the greatest miracle of your life is only a shift in perception. Rather than looking through the lens of lack and fear, looking through the lens of wholeness and love is the great miracle of consciousness. And we've been talking about that for several weeks here at HeartLight, and it's online if you want to get hold of some of these teachings that are based on A Course in Miracles. So we walk around our planet typically living, seeing, and responding to what is called our third dimensional expression. That's the one you live in every day. When you wake up in the third dimension that has normalized and stabilized itself as the everyday life of each and every one of us. In 3D, we call it, we are constantly challenged by the polarity, which is the nature of this dominion. Again, why? Because it was built upon a belief on I am not you, you are not me. And in buying into that, we lost the thing that connects us, the universal self, or we call the spiritual self. But the spiritual self is a universal self. It is a field of energy that we all share. We all share. And sometimes we need to return back to that place of where we all share, rather trying to fix each other, by trying to find validation for our beliefs and our perceptions built upon this separation. In 3D, we are constantly challenged by the polarity in which the nature of this dimension. It is simple Newtonian physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The challenge occurs from the opposites themselves, but from the fact that we do not know how to integrate these opposites. There's the important thing I want you to get today. The challenge occurs when we do not know how that we can bring these opposites together to work for the whole. This in turn thrusts us into a duality in which the polarities operate as odds against each other. Odds against each other. But can we exist in that kind of perception? It is relatively easy for us humans to see things from a higher dimensional perspective, but so often we get caught in the drama, of reactivity, and cannot or will not utilize this ability to pull the polarities together to work for the greater whole. I'm going to show you something here because, Tim, if you will give me the 9 frequencies, the 9 dimensions, I'm sorry. I'll just show you real quickly kind of how this basically works. So what we know in quantum physics is that there's approximately 9 major dimensions of consciousness that we have the ability to interact with. Now, the thing I want to make clear to you here that these are all available all the time. They're not something you don't have and you need to go to the next one. It's just that we do not know how to activate them into our everyday consciousness. So that's why the teaching can be so important. And I'm not going to go through all these at this time, but if we do get into this, we'll look at them. But what we want to look at right now is where we live every day is in the 3D linear time space, solid world, humanity, level. This is the 3D world that we live in. Why 3D? Because everything that you are observing through your brain as a perception has height, width, and breadth. Everything you're seeing has height, width, and breadth, and that is called space. Space. And I've been through this so many times, but you add the fourth is time. So you live in a 3D world and you move through space based upon something called time that is relative. So each and every one of you are having a different experience with time. Time is either fast to you or it's slow to you. And maybe two of you are trying to get from A to B and one of you gets to B and says, wow, I got here so quick. And the other says, I thought I'd never get here. Because time is something that is a part of how you experience your move through faith or through the fourth dimension. Give you a little history behind this. Actually, something powerful happened in 1995 that was blasted to us on third dimension from the ninth dimension from the Pleiades. Now the Pleiades may be a little far out for some of you, but the Pleiades is a star constellation that has shown up in a lot of channeled spiritual information for the last several years. I personally feel a collective connection to the Pleiades. And it's interesting that the Pleiades is one star constellation that is mentioned in the Bible. In the book of Job, it speaks of Orion and Pleiades. So the Pleiades must play an important part of our connection to where we have come from as star people. Now, that's not so way out as it sounds, because it is proved that 80% of what makes up your physical atoms is star dust. You can look that up on the internet and see that 80% of the human atom is made out of the same thing that stars are made out of. So there is a people walking on this earth that are star seed. Now I'm going to take myself slow here and just kind of go with this. I've told you a download that I got some years ago when I was told that the Bible is a coded book. That's why you can't take it so literally. And even the Bible tells you itself, the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. So you have to know the Bible spiritually, or often what we call metaphysically. That's all metaphysical is. Long before I even picked up the term metaphysical, I was calling it the spiritual application of the word. Not what it said, but what does it mean? What is the heart of the word? The meaning of it. And I started teaching that rather than what it said. I started teaching what it meant. In the language in which it was written, the culture, and most of all, the teaching by the Spirit. And when you get teachings by the Spirit, it does not always align with what you've been taught in culture. That's why most of you are probably here. Because you that come and was raised in a religion, I have a feeling you sat there at some point and said, wait a minute, this just is not jiving with me. It's not resonating with me. This anthropomorphic God out there who was judgmental and a little neurotic and sending people to hell, but he loved us anyway, but still going to hell. All of that, you sat there and went, wait a minute, something's just not right here. Because you were coded not to receive that kind of teaching. And then when you started hearing things more toward New Thought and metaphysics and the principles of science of mind and unity and all of that, you begin to find more of a resonance with you. And you became a part of a different tribe. Remember when I did the talk on the tribe that gave no attendance at the altar? The Bible says there was a tribe that gave no attendance at the altar. When the 12 tribes were all named, there was this little group of people over here that didn't fit any label. They didn't fit Judah. They didn't fit Benjamin. They didn't fit the Levites. They didn't fit any of the 12 tribes. And they were just kind of over here waiting like, where do we belong? And the Bible said they were a tribe that gave no attendance because they were a people transcending out of the physical tribes into God's tribe, God's people on earth. And that's what the message is to today. It is to that tribe that gave no attendance at the altar. Today we have different names for that, like light workers. 144,000. Now, there are some people that still take that literally. That's only 144,000 human bodies on the planet that's going to change everything. But actually, that isn't a number of quantity, but it's about quality. The 144,000, it says, could learn a song that not others could learn. It was a song that only resonated with them. Songs are messages. There's a message that resonated only with them. And if you're not of that particular tribe, it doesn't matter what family you're born into, what DNA, what ancestral. That is no guarantee that the whole tribe's going to get you. Because you're going to have to find yourself a part of another tribe, a spiritual tribe, a tribe that has a contract to step up and be a part of this great transaction and transition that is going on in the planet. This is why it's so important for you to be in community. And be with as much as you can with like-minded people. And this concerns me about, what has happened the last 2 years, that people are adapting too well about staying at home and doing this on their own by themselves. That concerns me because I think you can just go so far by yourself. You will grow much quicker if you are in something that is bigger than yourself. You can't be an island. You know what it says about islands in the Bible? And the island shall fall into the sea. People will get lost. And I say to you out there that need to come back and be with us, I encourage you to do so. We're doing our best to make this as safe as you possibly can, but we do not want to let fear take over. There's a place for caution, for guidance. But we must move forward, and there's never been more of an important time for us to come together and be counted. This is a great crowded, I think every chair is filled in here. That's hope. There's your hope. That we can begin to flourish and move forward and no longer find ourselves isolated and away from that part of the tribe that we have joined. You know what it says about these tribes? That they're a peculiar people. A peculiar people. A royal priesthood. A peculiar people. So my message is to you that have the ears to hear. So in 1995, the earth was blasted with 9D information. Now let me say about the 144,000. The 144,000, you got to look at all the numbers in the Bible, whether it's verses and chapters or how many times something repeats itself in so many verses. You got to learn to see the Bible mathematically. It is the true language of everything is mathematics. So when you look at 144,000, not as a number of people, which you know the ego wants to put everything on the body. So that's why they're teaching 144,000 bodies. But if you use a Pythagorean ability to find a root vibration, you add them up. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 4 is 9. And 9 is what? Completion. You that understand numerology and understand numbers know that you can go to 9, but then when you go to 10, what do? 1 plus 0 is a 1, and you start over again. So you've completed at 9. So I ask about this tribe, this group, these souls who have made the contract to step up and be a part of change, become the change you want. Rather than waiting for the change, we are the people of action, of change. And I said, what is it that we are complete with? What is it? What's the 9 mean? What is this completion of what? And I was asking myself at that time, what does that mean for me? And it said, because you've completed all of your incarnations in 3D. No more return back into third dimension. In other words, I can't just keep on the third D of action and reaction, or we call karma, and then come over here to the next lifetime and work it out. I don't know how many lifetimes. I don't know if you all believe in lifetimes. Maybe some of you don't. It doesn't matter whether you believe in 1 or 1,000. You're still the sum total of your story, however long it's been. But we have apparently been given enough lifetimes that if we would have used our free will to attain the completion of it, we would be in better shape today than we are. Why are we not? That's the question. Why are we still dealing with so much 3D conditions, which is built upon not only separation, but the separation of polarities. I remember 1995. It was a powerful time in which the ministry changed very quickly with new information pouring in the meetings that I was attending and doing. I said, I don't know what has happened, but something has opened up. Some portal, some doorway has opened up that more information is coming in to be available in 3D from higher dimensions. So as we continue to deal with this experience that we are experiencing right now, also in 2012, the fulfillment of the Mayan calendar, all 9D dimensions ripped open because our planet, location and orientation in the Milky Way galaxy think of these times. These were major shifts, whether we were aware of them or conscious of them, begin to open up. as we prepare ourselves to receive what was coming by raising our own vibrations and frequency and changing our consciousness. Once we are able to master and utilize 4D, which is what we are in now, 4D. 4D is an interesting time. Yeah, okay, go back to that. I didn't see that. I don't know what's up here because it's behind me all the time. Anyway, if you notice there was 3D. Look, think. There it is. Okay, here's our 3D. 4D is like a canopy where all the frequencies or all the dimensions happen. What you need to know is that anything that comes from any higher dimensions of information into our third dimension is built upon a consciousness of constructs, of mental constructs, of this and that. But as the fourth comes in, it is a dimension for the activation of 3D experiences into emotion. Into emotion. So everything as 4D is being activated, we are activating all of the hidden emotions in 3D that have not been balanced or healed or taken care of. This is why the time you're living in is so emotionally charged. Until you can hardly talk to people. Because people are so emotionally charged about what they believe and what they think that it's become a time of more disconnection with each other. Now, I'm not in any way trying to approach this from a political point of view, because I think that what we are being called to is to see what is happening in our world from a spiritual point of view. When you're seeing things from a spiritual point of view, you will not see things from right or wrong, good or bad, but you will see that everything is connected and working together for the greater good. The message that is coming forward now is certainly not for spiritual babes or adolescents, but it is for those who are willing to grow up into the responsibility of co-creators. So the fact that we in 3D live in such a world of division and separation, let's take something like the yin-yang sign. That's a good one. The yin-yang. The yin-yang was not to be about separation. It was about two polarities called the yin and the yang, male and female, coming together and working together to create something that is greater than each part could be. And the only thing that is going to move us out of this time that we are living in is going to be through our ability to not separate and divide the polarities, but to unite them into a spiritual vision and purpose. Remember, it says this in 3D that is moving us into 4D causes us to be at odds with each other. Why? Because we have taken sides. We have two poles pretty much dominating the world today. A more conservative and a more non-conservative approaches. And it is very easy on a human level for us to gravitate toward one or the other. So in this fourth dimension experience, we have to learn how to bring them together. The United States of America, built upon the idea of a two-party system, was really genius at the time of its conception, an idea. And during the times of history that you can find where there was a working together, across the aisle, so to speak, that we lived in much prosperous and better times than we do when we're at odds with each other. And that we have identified with one polarity. I'm a yin. If you're not a yin, then you're not a part of me because you're a yang. And the yang says if you're not a yang and you're a yin, then you're not a part of me, and they begin to clash when they should be working together for the greater good. So this is what it means to be spiritual at this time, is to transcend this four-dimension time-space that you and I live in, and to see it from a higher fifth-dimensional perspective. Reclaiming our original nature is not an easy thing for us to do. On a global level, the energy of this transition and the collective resistance to the change it brings is intense, overwhelming. Activating your 5D frequency provides us with a roadmap to help us navigate through this fourth dimensional experience. I've given you some really good Bible analogies for that, and I always use the children of Israel's story because I think their story is about us. And their story is moving out of the bondage of where they had been for 430 years and to go to their land that you so beautifully told us about, the hope of their land. Now, not getting into that historically or literally, but realizing that to us this means the leaving of the bondage of a dimension that has stabilized us as a norm and moving toward the dominance of a higher, better frequency or dimension. So you could say that the fourth dimension is the bridge between 3 and 5. Just as the wilderness was between Egypt and the land of Canaan, where the milk and honey flows. And the fourth dimension, or wilderness dimension, was not a fun time for the children of Israel. For it says for 40 years, whatever that means. 40 actually means the number of trials and testings. So whether it was 40 literal years, or I don't know if any of this is literal, I just know about it, what the story represents in me is that you have to go into this fourth dimension wilderness experience for the purpose of losing old patterns of the dimensions that has dominated you, which we call the breakdown period. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, as much as we don't like what's going on, a lot of us, and we don't agree with it, and the frustration it causes us, and sometimes the anger that shows up and all the things that shows up, if we could see that all of these actions and reactions have a spiritual component to it, and that we can raise our consciousness to a fifth dimension to look down upon the fourth and not be sucked in and knocked out consciously, then we can truly become light workers. What is light worker? Just look at the word light worker. It means those working with light. What is light? Photons. What's a photon? Data. Information. That's why we use the term enlightenment. Light is information bundled to come into a third-dimensional mind in the form of photon data or informations. You know them as epiphanies. You know them as those aha moments that Oprah talks about so much. When you have thoughts that does not fit your everyday thought patterns. Where'd that thought come from? Why would I think that way? I didn't even know I believed that. This is the kind of relationship you should be having internally with yourself as you go out into this wilderness of breaking down the dominance of old patterns. Now, why the children of Israel had to go through this is because it says that when they were led out of Egypt, they were a people of war. There's a good lesson here for all of us. I don't care what culture, race you come from, what your experience and your history is all about, is that at some place we have to ascend to the higher spiritual meaning rather than to what history has told us. Because the data of fifth dimension will have a different story than the story you're getting through the news. Right. And through the history books, by the way. Trust me, what I learned in school is not accurate today at all. From dietary teachings to many things that we've learned is not in the best interest of human beings that were being taught in education. This is in everything. Every system is having to re-look at what they and how they have believed and how they have seen things to be. So what I'm saying is that we have no excuse as far as what has been opened up to us. It is completely opened and ready for us. Our part is what's important here now. The part in the higher dimensions have all been accomplished and done, but it is up to us to find the frequency codes that unlocks them as manifestations of our life. I happen to believe that one of the greatest codes, not the only, but the greatest codes that I've been given are the Solfeggio Codes. Solfeggio Codes. What makes Soma Energetics unique than many, many of the other modalities that people have learned? I think one of the first fourth dimensional modalities to come through was Reiki. Because that has been the entrance for a lot of people to enter into energy work is Reiki. I'll say 80-85% of the people come through our classes have come through Reiki first. Why? Because we were being equipped to go through the wilderness by certain modalities that were showing up in the last several years. A lot of them are indigenous, old ones. Others are new ones like Soma Energetics. Soma Energetics was not necessarily a indigenous, old return, but it was something born and created in the present time. But all of the modalities of working with sound and energy was because of this opening of these portals and pathways of how we can use it to get to the fifth dimension to become a fifth dimensional citizen. Being a third dimension citizen is not working for us. Do you understand that? It's not working for us. Now, a lot of people think, okay, then that means I got to go to fifth dimension. No, fifth dimension is always around us. All these dimensions are always there, just like all those TV stations are always there. But I stay tuned most in my everyday life into 3D principles, which at this point has got us into the great challenge that we have found ourselves in because of the fourth dimension being opened up has increased the energy in our emotions to charge very much. What are we supposed to do with that? Oh, my time's up. What should we do with that? Learn how to integrate these polarities. We are being challenged to stop choosing one side or the other. It's not about sides. It can be about our morals, our values as a human being. As a human being. Oh boy. I want to be careful because a lot of you, if not all of you, but all of you can lean with your values toward one polarity or another. You may not agree with everything in that polarity, but enough that represents your values that you join in. And somehow we think the one we connect to is the one that's going to win. And that keeps us into a war consciousness. Jesus said to his disciples, who asked him what would be the end of the world or the age, he said that you will see nations rising against nations, earthquakes in places you've never seen them before. Now, I know that's happening on the side of the planet, but also it's happening because it's happening in us. It's happening in us. See, you think of a nation rising against nation, it would be America against Russia and China, all of that. But I'll tell you, what about your condemnation? Procrastination. You got nations in you that need to come together, that are rising until it's pulling us apart till we don't even know who we are anymore. Because we're searching for a new identity. A new identity. We need to tap into fifth dimensional teachings so that we can make it through the fourth dimension. If you can show the Soul Energetics curve, I will show them that. And all I'm doing today is trying to just put a little out there and see how far you want to go with all of these things. I know I'm ready to go deep, so I'm telling you, I'm tired. This is what I was shown. 3, 4 is time-space, linear. As you move into the fifth dimension, you experience what Einstein called the curve. And the curve is based upon the density of matter. So the sun is round, planets are round, Earth is round. Some don't even believe that, believe it or not. There are those. And the reason they're round and different sizes is because each one represents a density of matter. When that density point has been reached, matter begins to turn back on itself to follow the eternal return of energy. So the Solfeggio frequencies, to me, is the curve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, catch you 6, 7, 8, 9. And again, 1, 2, 3, space, 4th, the time we're going through right now. And those who are connecting to ancient frequencies, and these frequencies that are showing up right now are those that will make the curve. Now you got to understand that the literalist fundamental Christian sees this as the end of the world. Because they don't see anything more in the linear, because the linear is curved. And you that will learn to make the curve will have a much better, easier time to change your citizenship from 3D to 5D by going with the curve and catching the spin of frequencies. And I think Spirit would have me tell you this today, that most of what you folks have been through since 1995 and also 2012 has been preparing you for this time. Been preparing you for this time. This is why we continue to put out the clarion call for the light workers. Unfortunately, the Spirit, the universe, however you want to call it, has opened up a way for me to reach more people at a time through these podcasts that I'm doing. Why? Because things are escalating. We're at a very strategic and important time of a major crossroad. Either we die in this wilderness or we evolve in this wilderness, but we cannot stay the same. There is nothing that will ever be the same. And people are out there saying, I want to go back to what it was pre-COVID. Good luck. It will never be that world again. That world has passed away with a noise, the Bible says. And then the earth shall become a new earth. So I just had to open this up a little bit and talk to you. As you see, I've got tons of stuff here I could be saying. The earth itself is changing its own heartbeat, called the magnetic field of the human resonance. Your heart wants to entrain with Mother's heart. When her beat changes and her rhythm changes and magnetic fields change and you don't, there is a great discrepancy in your life that you never feel in alignment. Nothing feels right. Something is always missing. And that's why here at HeartLight we want to do our best to find how we can retune ourselves to what is taking place in this great transformation. And we can learn to dance with it. I'm closing with just sitting in a dentist chair one time and watching the trees. There was a lot of trees and how the wind was blowing strong that day. And I was just fascinated watching these branches and these leaves survive those winds by not resisting the wind. But they went with the wind of change. And today we need to open our hearts and we need to find how that we can find this rhythm to what's going on in the world today. I don't know how much I can do it. I have my times of being knocked out consciously and going into reactive mode. I don't like this one. I don't like that one. I like this one. I'd rather see this one. It's so easy to go there, to slide into that place. But if we could start practicing more and more of being up here in the fifth dimension, looking down at 3-4, we would see it completely different than we're seeing it from 3D. So it is about raising consciousness, isn't it? It's about the evolution of our consciousness today. So I just wanted to plant a seed that maybe you want to join me, because I'm going to do my best to practice this idea of not seeing these two polarities against each other, but how it can all work together for good. I know all things work together for my good. Every step is ordered of the Lord. I came out of God. I am the living Word. I do only what I hear my Father say. Know that all things work together for my good. Every step is ordered of the Lord. 'Cause I came out of God. I am His living Word. I do only what I hear my Father say. Can I say it again? I know that all things work together for my good. Every step is ordered of the Lord. Well, I came out of God. I am His living Word. I do only what I hear my Father say. I lied, I'm going to do it again. I know that all things work together for my good. Every step is ordered of the Lord. 'Cause I came out of God. I am His living Word. I do only what I hear my Father say. I do only what I hear my Father say. Do only what I hear my Father say.
Time to let your